Um, so I just want to talk tonight about some ideas that I had kind of throughout my life and how they all kind of failed. And leading up to the kind of last thing that I worked on, and that that worked out very well. But I've just kind of been thinking, in preparing this talk, that I've just kind of been trying things for a while, and that one just kind of happened to work. And I don't really know why that one worked. I haven't gotten there yet, um, but I've been trying things for a while, and I've been failing a lot. And I think I learned something from each of those failures. So I just want to talk a little bit about those. I think I have about 15, 20 minutes, so I'm just going to set a timer so I don't get too lost in like random stories. Um, so it all kind of, I was thinking back to one of my first ideas, or like my first like kind of attempt at having some sort of business. And I was probably about 8 years old, and I bought a pack of Tic Tacs with my allowance. And I worked it out that there's about 40 or so Tic Tacs in a pack, and that if I sold them all for 5 cents, that I could make $2. And and I sold them all, so it was very a successful start. uh, but then I got really greedy, and this was the beginning of a failure. But I figured if I can sell them for 5 cents, I should be able to sell them for 25 cents each, and that would be $10. But that didn't work out at all. I don't think I sold any. A friend of mine named Paul asked me for a Tic Tac in class, and I said, "You need 25 cents," and he said, "Just give me a Tic Tac. I'm your friend." I said, "Well, I'm trying to run a business here, right?" And so it didn't go over too well. He was really, really upset, and he said a quote which I'll never forget, which is, "You can't sell things to your friends." And I remembered that for a long time, and I also remembered that I shouldn't overcharge. So, and how many people in here remember MIRC? Okay, pretty good. So MIRC was like a chat room, and it was really popular in, I would say, the late 90s, early 2000s. So in 1999, I was in grade 9, and I was walking home from school, and my friend Megan said, "Hey, are you on IRC?" And I was into computers. My mom, when we were kids, was doing a master's degree distance from St. Mary's, and she had to have internet, so we kind of had it early, and I'd been messing around for a while. But I hadn't heard of this IRC thing, so I went on there, and all of my friends were on there, like just chatting after school and kind of hanging around. It's just a chat room if you picture it that way. You had all your friends, and then people would just talk about whatever. And by the time we got into high school, we were meeting friends from other schools. People would meet girlfriends on there, boyfriends, and the topic in the chat room would be whatever the big party is going to be that weekend. So this was kind of like a blessing or a curse. It depends how you want to frame it. But if your party was in the topic in a popular channel, you probably had about 300 people there, and the cops would come pretty quickly. But we would mess around on there, and we kind of got into like hacking a little bit, although they're called script kiddies now, but you'd download scripts that you find on the internet that would kind of mess around with someone's computer. And when I first discovered this, this person who I really hated at the time from Glace Bay, and we ended up becoming really good friends, but he had this copycat script, it was called. And whenever I said anything in the chat room, he would come back and say the exact same thing immediately. And I thought he was just there being very attentive, typing whatever I typed. So I typed a really long sentence, and I hit enter, and he immediately replied with the exact same thing. And I was very frustrated. But this kind of, it got me curious about how he was doing this. So I started figuring out that what runs IRC, what runs MIRC is actually code. And he was using code to play this trick on me. So I learned that trick, played it back on him, and I played it on all my friends for a while. And we eventually used to play this game where we would go into somebody's computer, and we would find their music collection, and we would play a song, and we would turn up the volume. And they would always be friends of ours, and they would come to me and my friends, knowing that we're into computers, and they would ask us what's wrong with their speakers and stuff, and we would get a good laugh out of that. But it was very juvenile, and it was very like we were playing pranks on our friends and stuff. But a lot of these people are, they're in computer careers now, and it was just, it was kind of a fun way to learn these things because we were just, playing jokes. Um, so I got into programming from that basically, just from kind of hanging out with friends online. And going into university, I took a class called C++. And actually, in grade 12, there was a programming class, which is, to this day, there's only one programming class that's offered in the K-12 curriculum. And it's actually an optional class that's in grade 12, which I think should change, but that's another topic. Um, but I took that class, and it was Terry Boone was the instructor, and I kind of learned to program, and I built a game, and I had a lot of fun with it. So I decided to take a program at the university called BTI, which was the Bachelor of Technology Information. And BTI was basically computer science, but in the School of Business. So instead of chemistry and physics, you would take marketing and accounting and things like that. So it was really fun for me because, it was a good fit because I was interested in business, I was interested in technology, and I didn't know what I was going to do, a business degree or a science degree. So this was like a perfect fit for me. But I took a programming class, and I really took to it. First of all, I had been programming already, so a lot of it was kind of review for me. But it was really hard for a lot of the other students in the class that hadn't been exposed to that type of logic that you do in programming, the if statements and the conditionals and things like that. And so they went, a lot of them were failing the class, and they went to the students' union and they said, can we get a tutor? And there were no tutors. So we had the idea that I could ask my professor if I could tutor the class for them. And that was kind of a cool experience just as a kind of hack on the education system, because the Students' Union was paying me to teach these friends to take a class that I was in. So basically I was just getting paid to study is the way I looked at it. So, so that was, I don't know, just kind of how I got into programming, I would say. From there, we took a class called Hardware. And the hardware class was... I found it was a lot of fun. A hardware class is where you actually learn about the RAM and the hard drives, and you plug them into the motherboards, and you learn all that kind of stuff. And I realized that I could probably turn that into a business. So in the evenings, I would kind of go home, and I would try to figure this stuff out. And I went to a local computer shop, and I asked him if I could shadow him, if I could just work for free. And he said no. And I thought, why? Like, I want to work for free. But he said, look at all the, these plaques I have on the wall. These are like train the trainer certificates. And I don't want to train you with all this stuff that I know, because you might turn around and start a business, and that just creates competition for me. So I'm pretty sure I still disagree with that to this day. Actually, I'm 100% sure I disagree with that. But because I couldn't get a job doing that, I started a business doing that. So he was kind of right. But I would say it wasn't a very good business. I did learn a lot. I started with making computers for friends, and I would order in parts. There was a wholesaler in Dartmouth that could ship things the next day. So I could order it, like in the afternoon, and then tomorrow it would be there at lunchtime. So I was rushing home from class, receiving these shipments, and then eventually, it kind of spread a little bit, and I was building, computers for people I didn't know. And kind of rushing home after class to build them, staying up all night. Eventually, I stopped studying, and I completely skipped my exams that year. And by January, I just dropped out completely, and I ran this business because I was pretty sure that I was the next Michael Dell. And as I learned more about Michael Dell, he started in like the 80s. I'm pretty sure. I haven't read this for 10 years now, but he started in like the 80s when the computer industry was just starting. And what he did, the brilliant thing he did, was he cut out the wholesalers completely, and Dell started manufacturing parts themselves and selling them, and completely cut down costs. And he had 80 employees after a month and all this stuff. And I just kind of felt a little bit discouraged by his story. It was just, he just did amazing things, and I felt like I wasn't going to be able to get there, and I kind of kept it going for a while. Actually, I made a website for it, and I actually started to like making the website more than I enjoyed actually building computers. And I feel like once I kind of learned to build computers, the excitement was gone for me. I didn't really want to do that with my career. But I started building the website, and I got it, ranked on Google. So if you Googled computer sales in Cape Breton, it would be the #1 result, because people weren't really thinking. This would be like, to give you a reference, probably like 2004, 2005. People weren't really thinking about being ranked on Google so much then, especially local businesses. And I got a call one day from Walmart. It was this contractor in New Jersey who was contracted to find contractors in local areas for Walmarts. And I was really, really excited. And he said that the photo booth needed these new computers set up and that they would ship them there. And I just had to meet them on this certain date. So I went down to Walmart, and you had to find the check-in desk or whatever if you're a business going there. And I said, I'm here to do some work on the photo booth. And she said, oh, you're picking up some photos. And I was like, no, I'm like doing some work. And she didn't believe me. Like, I looked so young that it was just impossible that there was any way that I was there to do work at Walmart. I was definitely there to pick up my photos. And so anyway, I got the work done, and I was really nervous. It took me about 2.5, almost 3 hours. And I didn't want him to think that I was like didn't know what I was doing, so I went home and I charged 2 hours for the job times $35. So I charged $70 for the job, and he called me on the phone. He thought there was a mistake, and he said nobody charges Walmart $70 for anything. It's always way, way more. And so I kind of realized I had been doing a lot of work and I had been learning, and I wasn't charging a lot, but that's fine because I was learning. But in this case, I definitely learned not to undercharge. You should know your industry. You should know what people are charging in the industry, and you should charge that because it's more sustainable. And otherwise, you do what I did, which is like super low prices, way too much work, and you eventually reluctantly go back to school in September. So. So from there, I got into web development, and web development that I learned from this opportunity was a lot of fun. I really liked it, and I just kind of build websites and do things like that, and just learn a lot, and learn to work with clients, and learn to invoice people, and do all these types of things. Now, something weird kind of happened in all of these kind of stories, but a friend approached me. And he said that he was going down to California for the summer to sell security systems, and he wanted me to join him. And he had done that the summer before, and he was really good at it. And they had offered him an office basically for the summer. So he said, we need to recruit some people to go down to California, and it's going to be fun. And as I learned more about this, it turns out it was actually door-to-door sales. So you're actually knocking on doors, convincing people that their home is going to be broken into and that they need the security system. And anyway, we recruited about 30 people from Nova Scotia universities, and we went down to California, and we ran this office, and it was a really cool experience, but I hated it, like a lot. I think I did it for a good reason. I think I did it because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. I had spent I think just too long sitting at the computer and doing these different things, and I wanted to learn to communicate better. And I think probably a good way to do that is to knock on doors and talk to strangers all day. So it was interesting, but I think two of the lessons that I really take from that is, one, you should only sell something that you're passionate about, because by the end of the 4 months, I was really, really depressed. I didn't believe in it at all. And that was just to have to say those words every day over and over and over again was just awful. And I told myself, if I ever sell anything again, I'm going to really believe in it. And the other thing was that I once lied to a house. I lied about the fees. And this was something that we were taught to do, and a lot of the best salespeople in the company were doing this. But they would lie about the hidden fees until the technician got there to install the security system. And then at this point, they kind of felt pressured while they're installing it anyway, and now I realize that I have to pay for this thing I didn't think I had to pay for. So I did that once, and the people found out, and they called me, and they were super upset. They trusted me, and I just felt really, really, really awful. And so I canceled the contract, and I stopped lying to people. But I think it's really, really important to be honest, especially in sales. And as I look around and I meet good salespeople now, I think that good salespeople are good, honest people, and they get clients that come back that trust them. So that was an important lesson. But at the end of the summer, by the end of the summer, I didn't really have the best sales. I sold 35 systems that summer, but I only had that one cancellation, which was the highest retention rate in the office. So I did feel good about that, even though I was super depressed. So when I got back to Cape Breton, I decided to get into web development again, and I started building applications. I built this Facebook application called Skill Swap, and you could kind of go on there and you could say, I'm a carpenter, and somebody else could go on there and they could say, I'm a cook, and you kind of list the skills that you're good at, and then it's kind of like speed dating for skills. It could match you up with people who could teach you how to play fiddle, and somebody else that maybe, knows how to crochet or something like that, and you could get together and you could swap these skills. And that had about 100 people or something like that. It didn't really go anywhere, but it was fun to build. And then I had this other idea that was to build a chat application, which was basically like IRC. And I started messing around with that and trying to build IRC, that old kind of social real-time experience that we used to have, but built that for the web. So I messed around with that. I met Doug Milburn, who runs ProtoCase, and I did a contract for them, and that was like one of my first real production applications that I built. And then my friend Dave Kim was working at TechLink, and he had been doing some designs for me on these websites, and he got me a job at TechLink. So when I finally graduated, I was working at TechLink, and I was really happy there. I had seen John Excitus speak before, and I was really happy to kind of have the opportunity to kind of be in the office with him sometimes and just learn from him. Now, about a year later, and this would be 2008, just to give you the timeline, but about a year later, I got a call from a company in Ontario, and they had found that application that I had built on Facebook, this skill swap application. And they said, you don't have any users, do you? And I said, no, there's almost nobody using it now. And he said, well, we have a bunch of users, but we need somebody who can build an application like that. And it was actually games that they had been building, and they had all these users, and we were making all this money. And he said, we're going to form a new company, and we're looking for somebody to run technology. So I had to, after a year, leave TechLink, and that was really hard, but I felt like this was an opportunity that I should take. And I called my father. I had been talking to my father on the phone, and he said, you should absolutely not leave TechLink. You have a good job in Cape Breton, a stable job for a good company, and you should definitely stay there. And I had that advice from a number of people, but I kind of got frustrated by it, and I said, no, I really want to do this. I don't know why, but I want to. And so I took that job, and for about a year, I met a guy named Kirk McPhee. Actually, he had just graduated, and so he was the first person we hired. And then Dave, who had been doing graphics, was helping us in the evenings. And they ran the company from Ontario, but we recruited this little tech team that worked out of my living room. So there's about 7 of us in my living room, and we built Facebook games for about a year. We worked really, really hard on it. We would start at lunchtime because we wanted to be kind of cool like that, and we would work into the evening. And we would order food and stuff like that sometimes, and it was just like a really cool environment in my living room. And we launched the game, and we did all this stuff to scale this game. We had bought enough servers that we could handle 250,000 daily users, so 250,000 daily users. And when we launched it, it was sort of moderate success. We got 14,000 users on our best day, and then it just completely died. And so we decided we were going to launch a new game. And we launched that game, and we only spent a month on that game after spending a year on the other one because we reused a lot of the code, but that game died. And the company laid people off, and it didn't work. After all that kind of effort, it didn't work at all. It completely failed. So I started looking for some ideas, and I wrote actually 10 ideas on a board and on a whiteboard in my bedroom. And one of them was this concept called deodor bin, and deodor bin was a compost deodorizer. It was also an insect repellent. It was fully biodegradable, so it was made from biodegradable parts, and you'd kind of hang it in there, and it would keep the bugs and stuff like that out of your kitchen and kind of absorb some of the stink. So me and my friend Dave researched that, and we filed a provisional patent for that, and we figured out the manufacturing process. And I learned from, I don't think I see Wayne Miller here, who runs Downtown Nutrition, but he taught us all about planograms. And planograms are in a store, that's how they design the product in the store. So the products that are actually eye level in a store are actually, those are the expensive products. Those companies are paying to get their products at that level. And if you're down below or up above, next time you're in the grocery store, it's always the cheaper products. That's because they're harder to reach. So we learned about stuff like that, and we ultimately didn't really care about the idea that much to really work on it as hard as we needed to. So that failed, and I kind of dug through some old code and stuff like that I had, and I found this idea for the chat application, which I had built, I guess, a year or two earlier, and I kind of messed around with that a little bit, and I came up with this concept that the web, as we knew it at the time, this would be about 2010, was a lonely place. And that's because we were all using Facebook and we were using Twitter, but you never really felt like you were on the web with other people. And from that experience I had in high school, we always felt when we were using these chat rooms that other people were there with us. And it was this really cool, like, engaging thing where you would meet people online. And I felt like that was missing from the social web, as it was called, with Facebook and Twitter. So we wanted to, kind of come up with something that was a little more real time. So I dug out that old code where I had built a chat room, and I felt like a chat room in 2010 was a little bit boring. It wasn't that interesting. So we came up with this concept where we were able to browse the web, basically, with other people. So rather than just having a chat room where you're kind of stuck in the room, you could go to YouTube or you could go to Facebook, and you could invite your friends and you could browse with them. So you could show them the photos you're looking at, you could show them the videos you're watching, you could log into Gmail and show them some email that somebody sent you, but it was this social browsing experience that was all real time, and it was an engaging way to browse the web, where we always browse the web alone and it's very lonely. This is like there's me and a couple people and we're like browsing the web together. So that actually, a guy named Jevon McDonald came into Sydney, and he did a speech at Tech Social, which is run by Bob Pelly. And the Tech Social was just a local meetup of kind of tech people that happened once a month. And Jevon came down and he did this speech about why it's important for startups to fail quickly. And I thought that was this concept that like really, really hit home for me. And a lot of the things that he said did, but that we should fail quickly. And I thought the fact that he was kind of saying, like, not only is failing okay, but if you're going to fail quickly. I thought that was really cool. So I kind of told myself that the next idea I have, I'm gonna show it to Jevon. So I kind of worked on that code, and I figured out how we could do this co-browsing thing, how we could actually, the first thing I had was Google. You could load up Google, and you could search on Google, and you could invite a friend, and they could see you typing in real time, and you could search and all this kind of stuff. And it took about 2 weeks to build that, and then I emailed Jevon, and he didn't really know what I was doing, but he kind of just accepted. And it was at a NovaCorp in Halifax on whatever floor, the 16th floor or something like that. And I was really, really nervous, and I had my computer, and I was going to demo this thing for him. And I couldn't get it working. I couldn't connect to the internet. It was just kind of a disaster. It took about 20 minutes, at which point, at one point, he said, I don't remember what you're doing here. He had kind of forgot. I just didn't say anything, I don't think, for about 20 minutes. Anyway, I got it working, and I demoed it, and then he hit me with these, he really liked it, but he hit me with these really hard questions, which were like, who are your customers? To which I said, everybody. And he said, well, that's the wrong answer. And so I said, well, everybody's on the internet, but he was like, yeah, but you need to really focus in on that. Facebook started with Harvard, as an example, although everybody uses Facebook now. And then he asked, who's going to help you build this? And I said, well, I was hoping I could hire some friends. And he said, well, you need co-founders. You need people to actually join you in building this. So that was really important. And then the third thing he said was just keep me in the loop. So I went and I asked my friend Kirk McPhee, who had built these Facebook games with me, and I said, do you want to work on this with me? We'll just do 20 hours a week. We'll see where it goes. And he said, sure. And it was actually at a Tech Social that Kirk and I were there, and I asked him. So, but so we did that 20 hours a week, and then we invited Dave Kim, who was my designer friend, who was working at TechLink, and he, left his job at TechLink, and he joined, and we worked on it 40 hours a week. And every week we would show it to Jevon, and then we worked on it 60 hours a week. And Jevon was shopping it around he was well known in the startup world, and he was shopping it around to some contacts he knew. And it was, I guess, December. I had gone to San Francisco for the first time, and I was really excited when I got back because I was able to, the thing that excited me so much was that I was able to have a conversation with people in San Francisco. I thought that a kid from Cape Breton would be unable to have a conversation with like these tech people who are like kind of running the internet in San Francisco. And it wasn't the case. I was able to have these really good conversations with them, and that gave me a lot of power, just that trip. It was only 3 days or something. But I got back to Halifax, and I was sitting down with Jevon at lunch, and he said, "What can I do to help you?" And I said, "Well, you should quit an Overcorp, and you should come join our company." So he laughed, and I laughed, and it was kind of a bold thing to say, but he 2 weeks later called me and he said, "Okay, let's do it." So he joined, and it was me, Jevon, Kirk, and Dave became the founders of Go Instant, and we worked on it for a total of 9 months. We were living off of our credit cards. We had moved to Halifax. We were paying for a house on Roby Street. We were working out of the kitchen. This is after working in Cape Breton in Dave's basement, in my living room, in Kirk's basement. So it was about 4 months before we moved to Halifax. We rented this house, working out of the kitchen, completely broke. Dave was getting married, and his fiance was back in Cape Breton living in their empty house where he left her. And somehow she supported him, and they're married today, and they love each other. She's a saint, but we were really, really stressed out, but we, in talking about it, when I've talked to Dave and Kirk about it, they said, but we were always optimistic about it, and we never really were worried about it failing. We were always just so excited about it. We were just working on it, and we were excited about it. And there was always a reason to continue. Each month we kind of gave ourselves these short little goals where it was like, if we don't get so many users within the next month, we have to, try something else. And we just kept hitting those goals, and all the things I had done in the past in the same way would have failed by now, but people kept telling us that this was a good idea, that this was going to work. So we just kept going. And we raised money, we hired a team, we were able to pay ourselves a salary, and a year later we got a knock on the door, and a company was interested in buying us, and that's basically the end of that story. And I just really want to drive home that it's okay to fail. I just feel like all I've done is fail when I look back at all these things, and this one thing worked, and I don't know why. I mean, it should have been or could have been a failure like the others. And in 2010, if I had decided that I was done failing, that this wouldn't have happened. And so I don't really know why, but I think if we fail and we fail quickly and we learn and we move on, that eventually we'll get better and better at the things that we're trying to accomplish. So thank you very much.